Hey, welcome homeschool moms. So I'd love to hear where you are most likely to experience unrealistic expectations. Is it with yourself? Is it with how much you can get done or something related to your homeschool? Or is it related to your other relationships, the ones that are supposed to be supportive and nurturing, but are not always? I'm curious. So you could say A, B, or C in the comment section. Now, this discussion is built on a question that was asked by Michele. And so, because I do not recall which Michele it is, I hope that it relates to all Michelles that are in this group. Welcome, Michele. I'm going to be talking about unrealistic expectations of other people, of you. Let me say that differently. I'm going to speak about unrealistic expectations, those unrealistic expectations that other people have of you. That's what I meant to say. So this is what Michele said. How do I navigate everyone's expectations? And by everyone, I mean, I'm talking about my experience specifically with my husband's expectations, my mother's expectations, my older daughter's expectations, my sister's expectations, etc., etc. As far as my extended family, my mother, my sister, etc., they just don't get it, and they hate that we're homeschooling. Well, I am fine with that, as in, okay, they have no experience with homeschooling, so they don't understand. I still find it extremely upsetting and stressful. As far as my husband, who is 100% behind homeschooling, he is not 100% behind how certain things have to be let go of because I can't accomplish everything. He does not expect that. So that also is really frustrating and upsetting. I remember once you saying, can you tune them out? They're really, really loud. So it's basically, how do I grow duck feathers and let everything just roll off? So thank you for your question, Michele. I recognize that I began a discussion last week on your question, and I spoke about unrealistic expectations of ourselves in context to another question, and I wanted to go deeper. I always think that having just a one-on-one conversation with somebody is by far more effective, because oftentimes when I'm coaching other homeschool moms or women in the homeschool community, I often find that the discussion or the question that that person brings is not usually the question at core. And it's hard to clarify that unless you have somebody else reflecting back to you what you're saying. So having said that, of course, you're invited to come connect with me. I can give you a booking link. We can have a conversation about it. And if anybody's considering coaching, just let me know. Okay, so on today's Facebook Live, I'm intending to discuss this topic, the unrealistic expectations of other people in our world. People matter to us. We care about what other people think because people matter. Community matters. And I know I have been said, or I have been heard to say, that it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't, but also we also care, because certain people really do mean something to us. So we have to learn how to navigate that inside of us and obviously in our relationships. So that's a really lovely question that Michele creates for us, because I can imagine that there are a couple people that have had experiences like this. I certainly have. And if I know anything about my 2-decade-long or more mothering and homeschooling experience, it is that I've learned not so much to not care what other people think, as much as care more about what I think, or the people that matter to me the most. What do we think? And those people are most definitely listening to what I think. But most importantly, what do I think? What do you think? What do you really believe about whatever you're choosing to do? And why does it matter what they think? Like, actually, why does it matter? Now, I'm going to stop there because I could keep going right now. But what I want to do is talk about this very relatable concern, because I can see that it can go in many different directions, and it would go in one direction if I was having a direct conversation. But here's how I ultimately have come to understand how we approach others that matter to us or people that don't. We get to decide who we include in our life and how we engage people. We get to decide. We get to decide if they matter. So just consider these questions for a minute as a framework for determining on an individual basis if these specific relationships matter to you. The first is, are they reciprocal relationships? Do they serve the other person and serve you? Do they provide the other person their needs are their needs met? And are they able to meet your needs? Are you able to see them clearly and understand them? And are they seeing and understanding you clearly? Are you able to serve the relationship? Is it one-sided or is it two-sided? Does the relationship serve you? How much time do you want to invest in this relationship? What is this relationship for? And why are you choosing this relationship? This is where I come from, is a discussion first about, let's just talk about if this is the intention for us to be in this relationship. So now when you're in these relationships, you get to decide how you want to engage. And you get to decide how you expect other people to engage you. So consider these 5 questions. When you share from your heart authentically, does that other person hear you? Are you able to share vulnerably? And do you want to share vulnerably with this person? When you have conflict, is it respectful? Do you engage respectfully with that other person in conflict? And how do you define a respectful conflict? Or difference of opinion. You could say difference of opinion or conflict. They may be one and the same, but it just delineates it a bit more. I think these are really essential questions to helping you navigate expectations, but also to navigating relationships, really. I think the concept of expectations is really always about relationship, but it could be about your relationship with you. Obviously, it can be your relationship with your homeschool kids. It can be your relationship with your significant people or relationships in your life. And of course, it can be your relationship to homeschooling too, your understanding or beliefs around homeschooling. So I have an overcoming overwhelm group coaching program that focuses on those 3 things: relating to yourself, relating to others, and relating to homeschooling. Because I find that when people get clear on what it is they expect from themselves and how they're going to relate to those things, they're less overwhelmed, mostly because they're more focused. And they don't need to grow feathers on their back. I have chickens, by the way. I don't know if I told you that. They do. They dry out pretty quickly too. And they're not ducks. But they're chickens and ducks that are just 100 feet away from my home near the island. And I've learned, well, so obvious, but we're not ducks and we're not chickens and we're not going to grow those feathers in the same way. I really think we were built to care what other people think. So in a more or less heart-oriented way, I think we need to consider the questions that I shared earlier. These relationships, why do they matter? Why is it that the other person isn't able to hear me? Is it because I'm communicating in a certain way? Is it because they're communicating in a certain way? Is it because we both agreed that we don't really listen to each other? We just argue out topics or things like conflicts of the day or issues of the day. Are we in a relationship to really see and hear each other? Because when we have two people interested in really listening and seeing the other person, we first acknowledge that we're not the same. I mean, I'm married and I know that we have very many common values, but we do not see the world the same way. And I have learned no one sees the world entirely the same way. So at some point we have to accept that we just all don't see things the same way, and accept and nurture each other anyway. But we both have to decide to do that together if we want to feel seen, feel served, and also see the others and serve them. Okay, so let me just share with you a few principles that have helped me in my journey, really things that I've learned over the course of time that they're hard-won lessons, hard-won lessons. I did not come by them naturally, and if you know anything about my story, coming from the childhood story that I have, nothing of what I speak of came to me naturally. I had to learn everything through a challenging story and to unravel all sorts of mindsets and perspectives that really didn't serve me. Okay, so the first thing that I would share is that people pleasing isn't our goal, ever. But connecting authentically and being kind and compassionate is always our goal. The second thing is that other people's opinions of you or your choices don't define you. Just because someone thinks a certain way about how we're supposed to do something doesn't mean that we have to actually register it. I mean, when it's a partner and you've agreed to be in a relationship with each other and you've agreed to do like parenting. Parenting can be one of the biggest conflict areas. It certainly has been for me. But parenting, choosing how you're going to engage your kids or how you're going to homeschool or the myriads of possibilities there. At some point, that moment of conflict, it's hard, it's not pleasant, but it's an opportunity to grow closer. It's an opportunity to listen to that person and for that person to listen to you and then ask each other. So what I hear you saying is that you want me to have all the homeschool books put away in a neat place before the end of the day. You want me to have dinner ready at 5:30 when you get home, or you want me to, you fill in the blank, wear high heels and a short skirt. I don't know. I'm starting to sound like I'm representing a 1950s scenario, but not really, because I'm deeply aware that we all have very different approaches in relationship, but it doesn't matter what I think. It really doesn't, because it's only you and your partner that decide together to create a relationship, create a family. And it is you two that need to decide how you decide to homeschool or how you relate to the kids. And that's hard enough anyways, isn't it? But you together decide. That means you need to listen to his perspective, ask him to listen to yours. And then I would ask you, what happens when you do? Because I know there's scenarios where somebody ain't listening to you. And then I would say, and why is that okay? Why is that permitted? Why are you okay with not asserting that you get to approach things in a certain way? Okay, so now we're sliding into things that really do deserve a full conversation, because I could be presuming all sorts of things, and I really don't like doing that. I know that it's me speaking into a phone or a screen and hoping that I'm able to reach this conversation point. But if it isn't, just come chat or have a conversation with me directly. Now, did I share with you? Okay, people's opinions of you don't define you. You get to choose your relationships. I'm going to say something that I truly, truly think is controversial. And I understand why, because I used to actually speak for the perspective that I'm about to speak against. I believe that we shouldn't assume that because we made a choice at one time in our relationships, that therefore that relationship is locked in. I know. We probably don't entirely see things the same way. Not every person that's going to watch this. Some will, some won't. But I've learned over the course of time, it is not useful for us to tell ourselves we have to do it because we said we would do it 15, 5, 2 years ago. I think we have to be really clear that we're choosing this person today and why. Now, the why might change, just like our why changes for homeschooling over the course of time. It surely changes over the course of time in a relationship. And yet, I think we need to every day wake up in the morning and say, am I choosing this relationship? Because if you're not, and you're resentful, and you're very unhappy, and you feel deeply unseen and not listened to, none of that backdrop is going to benefit your relationship. So get really clear. Are you choosing this relationship? The fourth thing is you do not have to relate to others in a way that isn't comfortable for you. So if you are a person who does not enjoy yelling or does not appreciate when someone uses a certain word, or you fill in the blank, there could be myriads of things here, then you get to decide how you're going to relate, and you get to decide how you expect other people to relate to you as well. The fifth thing that I would share is that you are responsible for listening deeply to other people's hearts. If I have learned anything about adolescence, not my own, my kids, it is that you discover they are not you. Though they came into the world, birthed by you or adopted into your family or fostered into your family, they are not you. And they are going to take different journeys in different ways than you have. They will not always declare, I see the world exactly as my parents do. You probably didn't, and your kids probably won't necessarily either. This is normal. And yet it is very difficult for us at times to really accept that. But because we love our children, always love our children no matter what, they give us an opportunity to listen deeply to the unique people that they are, even if they are deeply, uniquely different than us. So let them be the impetus for this thing that I've learned, that you are responsible to listen deeply to people's hearts, the people that matter to you. I really think that this principle, it would be just useful in the greater world right now anyways. Not that I have any prescription or any formula for all that's happening, but this one thing I believe is that we need to listen. We need to listen and care about what other people think. See, I said that before, that you shouldn't care about what other people think, and then I'm talking about how you should care about what other people think. Both. So the sixth thing I would say is you don't have to take on shame, blame, or condescension in conflict. You get to decide how you do conflict, and if it doesn't feel good, don't sign up for it. The seventh thing that I would share is that you get to establish and maintain boundaries. But remember to be self-aware to determine if you're engaging defensively or fearfully, and if you're engaging intentionally or courageously. So sometimes we put up boundaries, but really we're just like too afraid to deal with something, or we do things in an unhelpful way, like assert ourselves and say, no, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to deal with this thing, because we're too afraid to deal with it, and we're afraid of how maybe somebody interacts with us, or maybe we assume that they're not going to engage us in a respectful way, or maybe that they won't really listen to us or hear us, or maybe we just became exasperated and frustrated with them, so now we're just kind of subtly punishing them for something. I think we need to choose to maintain our boundaries out of intentionality, which is courageous, because it says, I'm going to establish what I think, I'm going to assert what I think, and I'm going to do it despite the fact that I'm not comfortable doing it and I don't like conflict. But I'm going to do it because I, the mother of me, wants to nurture me. And, sometimes we need to tell ourselves that you can do this. It doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable. It's not the best, it's not fun. It's not a Saturday, ride into the country. I don't know where that came from. Saturday ride into the country. That's not that fun. But anyway, it's not something you're choosing because it's fun. You're just doing it because you've determined that this is an important thing for you to do. Address conflict, establish intentional, courageous boundaries. The 8th thing that I would share with you is that you can share your opinions and have them listened to. And if you feel like the significant relationships that you shared were pretty significant, your husband, your mother, your daughter, your sister, those are pretty significant. And if you have determined them to be the people that you want in your close sphere and you've chosen those relationships, then I would say choose to engage in a way that serves you and serves them. They should have their opinions heard and you should have your opinions heard and really feel heard and listened to. Now, here's the thing with this homeschooling thing. Okay, first of all, this homeschooling thing is probably like one of the first challenges that you've got with these people. I'm going to guess that there are a few more conversation points that you may have had with them over the years that they didn't approve of either, and you've experienced them in a negative way. This homeschool thing, I remember feeling so defensive in the beginning, like, why don't you just love what I'm doing? It's the best thing ever, and it actually is. But everyone doesn't see things the same way. They're not coming from the vantage point that we are. They may not understand it now. Maybe they'll understand it in 15 years. Maybe they won't. But here's why I think it matters that they have a voice in it. If they are significant, important people for you. It is. They also care about your kids. They also care about your kids. And so perhaps they are coming from a place where they just are not quite sure that they feel comfortable with something that's so whatever, off the beaten path. Ask them, why are you concerned about it? Make them feel heard. Don't negotiate. You don't have to negotiate if it's not, I'm not speaking about your partner, but you don't have to negotiate with the other people in your world, how you're going to parent your kids or whether you're going to homeschool or put them in a brick and mortar school. You don't have to negotiate with them. They really are not part of the negotiation. And yet there can be a courageous, intentional conversation that you can have with them to say, okay, I would like to hear your concerns about this. What are your concerns? So you're saying that these are your concerns. And so what do you think the reason underneath that is? What do you think the reason is that you're most concerned about it? And then not defend yourself, not say, but here's why you're wrong, or here's why it's going to be fine. Just say, okay, I have heard your reasons and I care about you and I see that you care about my kids. And I'm also going to continue homeschooling. And so I ask that if you cannot be a full cheerleader every day, then would you consider, or then I ask you to no longer share your frustrations about these things. And then if they don't, then you know that you've got a boundary breaking challenge. But if they do, then you just discover that you could courageously, intentionally engage them in a way that made them feel seen and heard and served, made you feel seen and heard and served, and also that your relationship is stronger, because that is actually the benefit of conflict. If you can both manage it healthfully, you can ride through it in a satisfying way and get to know each other and connect better with each other. And the ninth thing that I would share with you is that you can embrace vulnerability and be authentically yourself. I think that's the goal in relationship, is that we should expect to be vulnerable and authentic, and we should expect others to do it too. I know it from experience that the more that you can do it for yourself and put yourself into the world, whether that's your world with those relationships or whether that's online with thousands of people, it doesn't matter how you do it. If you're doing it authentically, if you are being vulnerable at appropriate moments, you serve your soul by connecting in deeply with other people too. And then you get seen and heard and you help people. And it really is a very rich life experience when you can embrace your vulnerability and be authentically yourself. Now, I would love to hear from you. If anybody's been listening that isn't Michele, what would you add to this list? I'd love to hear your thoughts or your suggestions down below. So just throw them in the comment section. I think this entire discussion is really all about how we engage with ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, what we expect of ourselves, how we nurture ourselves, if we're being fearful in relationship with other people, or if we're being courageous with other people. This is, in essence, the building of strong boundaries, internal and external boundaries. And it is one of the elements of our Overcoming Overwhelm group coaching program. So I appreciate you joining me today and having this conversation, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Help to support Michele too by throwing in your words of encouragement in the comment section. I've learned that when you own your voice, you declare your voice confidently, you declare it not defensively, but intentionally, you discover that you care about your voice more, and you recognize that your choices or your voice makes your choices feel even more valid. And it almost is like a nurturing mother saying to yourself, yes, you get to make this choice. Great choice. Now you got clearer why you made that choice. When you own your voice, then you own your choice. So lovely chatting with you, and we'll chat with you next week.